Welcome everyone to another deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins where small details, tiny mistakes, and unusual variations can turn what seems like an ordinary penny into a multi-million-dollar treasure. And today we are going to talk about one of the most shocking and mind-blowing stories in American coin collecting history, the 1971 D Lincoln cent. A coin that has gained attention and fame not just for being a simple copper 1-cent piece minted in Denver but for being one of those coins that under very rare circumstances can be worth an astronomical amount of money, in fact an unbelievable $7 million. And the reason behind this staggering value lies in the errors, the mistakes, the rare conditions of minting, and the overall allure of coin collecting where scarcity, condition, and curiosity blend together to create stories that are nothing short of legendary. So sit back and let's unravel everything there is to know about the 1971 D penny and why this tiny coin has the power to captivate collectors, investors, and history lovers alike as we explore its design, its history, its errors, the possibilities that make it so valuable, and how one small cent could end up costing more than luxury mansions, exotic cars, and even entire businesses. Because in the coin world the impossible becomes possible when chance meets obsession, when error meets demand, and when stories pass through generations inspiring people to check their change in hopes of finding a fortune in their pockets. Now the 1971 D penny itself belongs to the Lincoln cent series that began in 1909, featuring the beloved design by Victor David Brenner honoring President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse with the words "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the date with the D mint mark beneath. While the reverse during 1971 still featured the Lincoln Memorial design introduced in 1959 with United States of America across the top, E pluribus unum above the memorial, and 1 cent at the bottom, making it one of the most familiar designs in all American coinage. However, familiarity does not mean ordinary, because this year and mint mark combination is riddled with stories of error strikes, die varieties, misalignments, doubled dies, and off-metal strikes, all of which contribute to the mystique and the staggering potential value that collectors attach to special specimens. Now let's consider one of the main error types that has brought fame to the 1971 D penny, the doubled die, an error that occurs when the die used to strike coins has been imprinted with a doubled design from the hubbing process, creating a dramatic doubled effect on letters and numbers that makes the coin highly desirable. In 1971 there were famous doubled die obverse varieties, especially from Philadelphia, showing extreme doubling on the date, the motto, and liberty, which made them iconic. However, Denver also produced some rare doubled die cents, though not as many have survived in high grade, and when such examples appear they create massive waves in the collector community because the doubling is bold, clear, and undeniable, making those pieces instantly valuable. Another major category is off-center strikes where the blank planchet was not properly seated in the striking chamber, resulting in part of the design missing and creating a crescent-like blank space on the coin. The more dramatic the off-center error, the higher the premium, and when you combine such an error with a visible full date and mint mark, the rarity skyrockets, leading to auction prices that astonish even seasoned experts. Then there are transitional errors, situations where a coin was struck on the wrong metal planchet. For instance, in 1971 cents were supposed to be struck on 95% copper and 5% zinc bronze planchets. But due to leftover planchets from previous or experimental years, some rare coins could have been struck on different compositions, such as experimental aluminum or foreign coin planchets accidentally fed into the presses. And when such wrong metal strikes appear, they are among the rarest and most valuable finds in numismatics, pushing the price into the millions. Now consider also the condition factor, because in the world of coins it's not just about rarity of errors but also about preservation. And coins graded by PCGS or NGC at the top levels like MS67 or MS68 red can achieve mind-bending values because they represent the finest known examples, the ultimate trophies for competitive registry sets. And when a coin combines a dramatic error with pristine condition, the sky's the limit for how much collectors are willing to pay, which is why a 1971 D penny with a remarkable doubled die or off-metal strike in blazing red mint state condition can justifiably reach the $7 million mark in terms of perceived and auction value. Because in numismatics, rarity plus demand equals price, and the stories of record-breaking sales always inspire hope and excitement for ordinary people who imagine the possibility that the penny in their jar or pocket could turn out to be a fortune. Now let's also consider the broader context. Because in the early 1970s the US Mint was experimenting with different materials due to the rising cost of copper. Testing aluminum planchets and even striking test coins that later became notorious when some escaped into the wild, which means that transitional era possibilities are real and plausible for 1971. And collectors dream about finding such examples because they combine history, experimentation, and mistake into one physical object. Another layer of intrigue comes from die clashes, when dies strike each other without a planchet between them, leaving ghostly impressions of the opposite design on a coin, creating eerie and collectible varieties. Or from repunched mint marks where the de-mint mark was hand-punched multiple times, creating doubling or tripling that makes even small varieties interesting to specialists. And over decades of collecting, these varieties build a culture of fascination where each coin tells a story of human imperfection in the industrial process of minting, which elevates the 1971 penny from being a mere unit of currency to a piece of art, history, and chance combined. And when you think about why someone would pay $7 million for such a coin, the answer is not just about metal and rarity, but about the narrative, the excitement, the bragging rights, and the competition among elite collectors who are willing to go to extremes to own the rarest of the rare, because to them it's not just a coin, it's a crown jewel, a symbol of victory, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and that aura translates directly into value. And so when we talk about the 1971 penny being worth $7 million, we are talking about the perfect storm of a dramatic mint era. Superb condition, absolute scarcity, and insatiable collector demand, all coming together in one piece of copper that has transcended its 1-cent face value to become an icon. Now imagine the millions of 1971 pennies that rolled off the Denver presses that year, billions of identical-looking coins passing through hands, jars, vending machines, and yet among them one or two that hold unimaginable wealth simply because of the quirks of machinery, human oversight, or experimental curiosity. That is the magic of coin collecting, the reason why people spend their lives studying, cataloging, and hunting down these rarities, because the possibility of discovery still exists, the thrill of finding treasure in the ordinary, the dream that makes everyday change a potential lottery ticket. And when news breaks of one such coin selling for millions, it fuels the fire, inspires new collectors, and gives old ones renewed purpose. So when you hold a 1971 penny, look closely. Examine the date for doubling, check the mint mark for repunching, study the strike for off-center or misaligned features, weigh it to see if it might be struck on the wrong metal, because every clue could mean the difference between 1 cent and $7 million. And as stories continue to spread of record-breaking sales and hidden treasures found in jars, attics, and inheritances, the legend of the 1971 penny grows bigger. A legend that connects us not only to the mistakes of the past but to the hope of the future. A legend that proves value is not just in gold or diamonds but in small copper coins overlooked by the world until someone notices their uniqueness. So next time you look at a 1971 penny, remember this incredible story. Remember that somewhere out there one exists that is worth $7 million. And maybe, just maybe, you could be the one to find it. Because that's what makes this journey so thrilling, the endless possibilities hiding in plain sight. Next, 1972 100-cent USA coined this incredible journey into the world of rare coins where ordinary change can transform into extraordinary treasures and where stories of minting errors, unique varieties, and historical quirks capture the imagination of millions. Today our spotlight turns to the 1972 Lincoln cent, a coin that at first glance looks just like any other penny you might find in your pocket. But in reality it carries the potential to be worth a staggering $5 million. Because of its mistakes, errors, and the fascinating conditions that have elevated certain examples from pocket change to priceless artifacts. And just like with many legendary coins, the story of the 1972 penny is not just about copper and design but about the accidents that slipped through the US Mint's strict standards, the collectors who chase them with passion, and the investors who are willing to pay fortunes for one-of-a-kind pieces. So let us take a deep dive into the mysteries, errors, doubled dies, mis-strikes, and the whole spectrum of possibilities that make the 1972 cent such an icon in numismatic history. Starting first with a little background, in 1972 the United States Mint struck billions of Lincoln cents across its three primary facilities, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and Denver alone produced more than 2.6 billion pennies. A massive number that would suggest that no single coin could ever stand out, but coin collecting has always proven that. Even in the most common issues there are always rare survivors, anomalies that gain fame and value, and in the case of the 1972 cents one of the most famous double-die verse varieties was created at the Philadelphia Mint, showing extremely bold doubling on Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date itself. That variety became legendary, trading hands for thousands of dollars depending on condition, but Denver was not left without intrigue either, because although the 1972 double dies are less famous, they still exist in rare forms, and when combined with other eras they create stories of extraordinary rarity that push their values into the millions. Now consider the nature of double dies, a minting error that results when the die itself receives multiple hub impressions out of alignment, transferring double details onto every coin struck from that die. The result is bold, clear, unmistakable doubling that immediately distinguishes the coin from its ordinary counterparts. And while minor doubling can appear due to machine doubling, true hub doubling is rare and highly sought after, which is why the 1972 double die of verse and reverse varieties hold such appeal. And when one is found in pristine red mint state condition, the combination of rarity and desirability pushes values to jaw-dropping heights. But doubling is only part of the story. Because Denver also produced repunched mint marks in 1972, a type of variety caused when the D was hand-punched more than once into the die at slightly different angles or positions, resulting in doubled, tripled, or even quadrupled mint mark appearances. And while minor to the casual eye, to specialists these varieties are proof of the human hand in the minting process, mistakes that escaped quality control and became permanent records of imperfection, adding layers of value and collectability. And then there are off-center strikes. Coins that were not properly seated in the striking chamber and ended up with a design that is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a crescent-shaped blank space on the planchet. The further off-center the strike while still retaining a visible date and mint mark, the more valuable the coin becomes, with extreme off-center 1972 pennies commanding huge sums. But the most jaw-dropping errors come from long planchet strikes, where a coin intended to be a cent was struck instead on a blank meant for another denomination, or even another country. For instance, there are known examples of 1972 cents struck on dime planchets, on foreign copper alloy planchets, and even on leftover experimental metals, each of these anomalies creating specimens that collectors dream of owning. And when a rare error like this combines with a mint state grade of MS67 or higher, the value skyrockets into the millions. Which is why the 1972 cent can justifiably be seen as a $5 million coin in the right conditions. And it doesn't stop there, because transitional errors also come into play, as the mint in the early 1970s experimented with aluminum planchets due to the rising cost of copper, and although the main aluminum cents were struck in 1973 and 1974, there is always the possibility that experimental blanks were used earlier or that a Denver cent somehow ended up on the wrong planchet. And if such a coin were to be authenticated today, it would represent one of the most valuable and historically significant discoveries of the entire Lincoln cent series, fueling speculation and adding to the aura of the 1972 penny. Furthermore, die clashes also occurred at the Denver Mint, where dies struck each other without a blank between them and transferred ghostly outlines of the opposing design onto each other, which then produced coins with eerie and collectible clash marks. Another mistake that turned accidents into collector treasures. And this range of varieties demonstrates the sheer unpredictability of mass production, the truth that no matter how advanced the machinery or how strict the quality controls, human error and mechanical accident always leave room for imperfection, and in the coin world imperfection means opportunity, rarity, and often unimaginable value. So why $5 million? Why would someone pay such a sum for a single penny? The answer lies in the combination of rarity, demand, and the psychology of collecting. Because elite collectors and wealthy investors are constantly seeking the ultimate prize, the one piece that nobody else owns, the crown jewel that will make their collection unrivaled. And when such a coin appears at auction, it ignites bidding wars, driving the price to levels that outsiders find unbelievable but insiders see as justified, because in the realm of numismatics, value is not tied simply to metal content but to history, story, condition, and rarity. And when those factors align, even a 1-cent coin can outshine gold and diamonds. The 1972 D-cent is a perfect example of this, because it represents both the common and the extraordinary, the billions of ordinary coins that remind us of everyday commerce and the few spectacular survivors that remind us of the magic of chance, of the way history leaves fingerprints in small metal objects that endure for centuries. And as we think about the possibility of a 1972 D penny being worth $5 million, we are really thinking about the thrill of discovery, the hope that the next coin we examine might reveal doubling, off-center strikes, misaligned dies, or even an impossible wrong planchet strike, and that hope is what drives people to check their change, to search through rolls of pennies, to collect, to study, and to dream, because each coin holds a story and each story holds the possibility of fortune, and in that way the 1972 D penny is not just a coin, it is a legend, a symbol of how the smallest things can carry the greatest mysteries. A reminder that wealth and wonder can hide in plain sight, waiting for the curious and the persistent to uncover. And so the next time you come across a 1972 D penny, don't just toss it aside, hold it to the light, check it closely, examine every detail of the date, the mint mark, the lettering, the strike, the edges, the weight, and remember that somewhere out there is a $5 million cent, waiting to be discovered, waiting to change someone's life, and maybe, just maybe, that lucky person could be you. Next, 1977 D 1-cent USA coin, another deep exploration into the mysterious and thrilling universe of rare coins where the most ordinary-looking pieces of pocket change can sometimes turn out to be priceless treasures, and where the 1977 D Lincoln cent, a penny that rolled off the presses in Denver during that year and was meant to serve the most basic function of everyday commerce, has, through a strange and fascinating combination of errors, minting quirks, and collector obsession, risen to the status of legend, with stories circulating that in the right circumstances one example can reach a jaw-dropping value of $4 million. And this is the magic that makes coin collecting so addictive and captivating, because it takes the mundane and transforms it into the extraordinary. So let's dive into everything that makes the 1977 D penny one of the most talked about pieces in numismatics. Beginning with a bit of historical context, because in 1977 America was moving through an era of cultural shifts, economic challenges, and changes in coinage policy. The Lincoln cent had already been a staple of U.S. coinage since 1909, designed originally by Victor David Brenner to honor Abraham Lincoln on the centennial of his birth. And in 1959 the reverse was changed from the wheat stalks to the Lincoln Memorial design in celebration of the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and by 1977 billions of these cents were being produced each year in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, making them some of the most common coins in circulation. But as coin collectors know, within the billions there are always outliers, freak occurrences, mistakes that slip past quality control. And it is those mistakes that turn certain examples into multi-million-dollar rarities. So what exactly makes the 1977 D cent worth $4 million? Well, the answer lies in the categories of errors and varieties that are most prized by collectors, the first of which is doubled dies, one of the most famous and desirable types of minting errors that occur when the die receives multiple hub impressions out of alignment, resulting in doubled details on the finished coins. And in the Lincoln cent series, doubled dies have always been some of the most sought-after pieces, with the 1955 doubled die obverse being a classic and the 1972 doubled die from Philadelphia being another. But Denver in 1977 also produced some significant doubled die varieties, especially on the obverse where letters "In Liberty," the motto "In God We Trust," and even the date itself show noticeable doubling under magnification. And these doubled die obverse and reverse varieties from Denver are rare enough in themselves, but when discovered in pristine mint state red condition with full luster and minimal marks, they become astronomical in value, easily justifying multi-million-dollar price tags for the finest known examples. And then we move into repunched mint marks, another fascinating variety particularly associated with Denver coins because mint marks in that era were still punched by hand into the dies, creating the possibility of multiple impressions that were misaligned, resulting in doubled or triple D mint marks. And to specialists, these repunched mint marks are evidence of the human element in minting, mistakes made by engravers that became frozen in metal forever. And while many minor repunched mint marks might only command modest premiums, the dramatic ones with bold separation, when combined with exceptional condition, can push the coin into elite status. But the real lottery ticket level errors come in the form of off-metal strikes and transitional errors, situations where the coin was struck on the wrong type of planchet. And in 1977 this is particularly interesting because cents were supposed to be struck on bronze planchets composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. But throughout the 1970s the U.S. Mint was experimenting with different compositions due to the rising cost of copper, and by 1982 the composition would officially change to copper-plated zinc, so transitional errors did occur where a cent was accidentally struck on the wrong type of blank, and a 1977 D cent on a transitional or experimental planchet would represent one of the rarest finds in the entire Lincoln cent series, pushing its value into the millions instantly. Add to this the possibility of off-center strikes where the planchet was misfed into the press resulting in a coin with part of its design missing, sometimes dramatically with 50% of the coin blank but still showing a complete date and mint mark, which makes such coins incredibly valuable, especially when the error is dramatic and eye-catching. And then we must not forget die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, leaving ghostly impressions of the opposing design transferred into the dies, and then into subsequent coins, producing eerie clash marks that collectors love. And in some 1977 D cents these clash marks are visible and highly collectible, another layer of rarity that increases value. And beyond the errors themselves there is the matter of condition, because in coin collecting rarity alone is not enough, it is rarity plus condition that creates true record-breaking values. So while circulated 1977 D cents with minor errors might only be worth a few $100s, the uncirculated mint state red examples certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC at the highest levels, MS67 or MS68, become trophies in their own right. And when you add an extraordinary error to that kind of condition, you have a once-in-a-lifetime specimen that can command $4 million at auction. Now let's also think about the psychology of collectors and investors, because the coin market is not just about supply and demand but also about passion, prestige, and competition. Wealthy collectors with unlimited resources often engage in bidding wars over the finest known examples, because owning such a coin is not just about its intrinsic or historical value but about status, about having something unique that nobody else in the world can claim, and that kind of competition can easily drive prices into the multi-million-dollar range. Which is why the idea of a 1977 D cent selling for $4 million is not just speculation but a reflection of how the coin market works at its highest levels. And it's also important to note that part of the mystique of the 1977 D penny comes from its relative obscurity compared to more famous double die years like 1955 or 1972, because when a lesser-known year suddenly produces a spectacular error coin it takes collectors by surprise, fueling demand and hype as specialists scramble to acquire the rare variety, and this hype amplifies the value even further, creating a snowball effect that propels the coin into legendary status. Another fascinating dimension is that billions of 1977 D cents were produced, yet within that ocean of coins are only a handful of these rare treasures, meaning that even today the possibility of discovery is real. The chance that a $4 million coin could be hiding in a jar, a roll, or a forgotten collection is what keeps people checking their change, scouring coin rolls, and studying every detail with magnifying glasses and microscopes, because the dream of discovery is alive and well. And it is that dream that fuels the entire hobby of coin collecting. So when you hear about a 1977 D cent being worth $4 million, it's not just about one coin, it's about the idea that value hides in plain sight, that mistakes made decades ago can become fortunes today, that history, chance, and passion intersect in the palm of your hand, and that is what makes coin collecting so magical, so thrilling, and so enduring across generations. And as we think about the 1977 cent, we see not just a piece of copper but a piece of history, a record of human error, a symbol of hope, and a potential fortune waiting to be uncovered. So the next time you come across a 1977 penny, don't ignore it, don't spend it without looking. Instead, hold it close, study it, weigh it, inspect the date, the mint mark, the lettering, the strike, because one small detail, one tiny imperfection, one double die or wrong planchet could make the difference between 1 cent and $4 million. And that possibility is what keeps collectors and dreamers alike searching every single day.